Facebook friends, associates, and group members to our monthly virtual conference. I'm your host, Emmanuel Barbee. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and share with your friends, ladies and gentlemen. We host our virtual conference every last Saturday of the month until we are able to raise the capital needed to fund our film project, Hood Liberator Made in Chicago, The War Against Willie Lynch Begins. This is a solution-based docudrama based on my experience growing up in the inner cities of Chicago and the purpose why I created GRCAM. This is our Black Panther moment, except it's not owned by Disney, it's owned by us. We want to get this film in front of 500 million people worldwide. We will offer a 21st century solution both domestically within the United States of America and throughout the diaspora. GRCAM is my gift to Black millennials, Generation Z, and my group members. I need all of my listeners to please mark your calendar for Friday, November 10th. We will be celebrating GRCAM 32nd anniversary on Facebook Live. We have upgraded our platform by moving from an audio podcast to a video podcast using StreamYard technology. We want to interact with our audience in real time through the chat room during our live stream. I want to know if anyone on my friends list or in my social groups who live in America know how to do a professional fundraising. If so, please send me a message to my Facebook inbox. Help Stop the Genocide in American Ghettos podcast is our interactive Black grassroots media component. We discuss controversial topics and give an Afrocentric perspective that you won't hear in mainstream media. We believe that now is the time for a comprehensive new strategy and a new movement for Black people / African people. I use this platform to interact with everyone on my friends list and everyone in my social groups by giving Black business owners free airtime to promote their products and services. I give people in the faith community an opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. I give Black authors and ordinary law-abiding citizens an opportunity to share their special talents to my listeners from the global community. After the show, I offer my guest speakers an incentive by teaching them how to create their own podcast and YouTube channel to help them earn extra revenue. I also assist people on my friends list with creating basic websites, finding college scholarships and grants, housing and legal services, all for free. Some of my critics ask me, what have I done in the Black community? I tell them to read my revised book. I documented everything I have done and will do. They tell me they're not going to read it. I tell them then I won't explain to them what I've done because it's already written in my revised book. My critics also say that I am a failed leader because it's been 31 years since I created the grassroots community activist movement and nothing has changed. I tell them I beg to differ. First of all, God has given people free will. I can't make anyone purchase my revised book or purchase items from my virtual store. My revised book has been on Amazon for 11 years and still it's barely selling. The same for items on my virtual store. My film project is my last attempt to try to do something positive for my racial group in America. At this time, all I can do is news commentaries. I come before everyone with clean hands. I am not running for public office. I don't operate like the next Black man. I have my own style and way of doing things. I have reached out to Black America online and in real life for the past 31 years. I have received little to no support. Now my focus is on reaching out to African immigrants within the United States of America from the following African nations: South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, Angola, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Nigeria. Please stand up and work with me in getting my Christian business, GRCAM Chicago, up and running. The sooner we get this film project fully funded and made, the sooner we can build the Grassroots Community Activist Institute of Chicago and expand to Africa. I created a GoFundMe page back in April 2022 as a crowdfunding source so that everyone on my Facebook friends list and everyone in my social groups would know exactly where the funds for our film project would go. This will also indicate our progress in getting this film fully funded and made. Out of 1,800 people on my Facebook friends list, only 5 people have donated to our film project on our GoFundMe page. Black people, African people, we got to do better. This is for the next generation. Again, I refuse to be ignored. I offer something that no black leader has in America, and that is a solution to solve all of our social problems in America if given a chance. All I have is my revised book, my virtual store, my online groups, and this platform. I recommend that if you're serious about turning my vision and plan for Black America into a reality, then please purchase my revised book and read my story. If you agree with what I'm trying to do in the African American community, then make arrangements with me to come on my podcast so that we can talk about it. I'm using this new technology called the internet to broadcast my vision and plan to all who will listen. It's my hope that African immigrants within the United States of America would come forth and work with me, first by reading my story and then donating to our film project. Once the proceeds from the docudrama starts pouring in, then I will be in a better position financially to purchase property in Chicago, buy office equipment, and hire qualified Black middle-class professionals and African immigrants within the United States of America. I will run my Christian business the way I run my home, drama-free. The Grassroots Community Activist Institute of Chicago's mission is to eradicate urban violence in Chicago through art, culture, commerce, spiritual development, and hosting African tours in 10 African nations. We're going to meet people from my African group, GRCAM of Africa. I will bring the best of the diaspora to each African nation so that we can set up local chapters and do international trade among our people. We will reconnect Black entrepreneurs with African entrepreneurs, Black artists with African artists. In this Christian business, our objective is to heal from enslavement and colonization. Since Black America / Black Chicago has overlooked and rejected my vision and plan for the past 31 years, my Christian business will be membership-based. I am only responsible for my members. Those who are not part of us, we will pray for them, show them tough love, and keep it moving. Once we have a physical building in place, then we will hold mandatory orientation for our new members and local residents. Those who have rejected my vision will not be part of my business. That's just how it is. We will declare war on this Willie Lynch mentality within Black culture. Black immigrants will also heal from the colonized mindset in our business. We will invest in our Black youth who is trying to do something positive in the African American community. It's my hope that GRCAM Chicago would become a franchise just like McDonald's and expand across the United States in every inner city in America. This is what I'm trying to do for our young Black people in America and in Africa. I can't do this alone. This is a Nehemiah assignment and a shared burden. It doesn't matter how bad I want to get this film project fully funded and made. Without financial support from the Black grassroots and the global African family, then I am unable to do my job. Over here, we will raise the bar in Black America and in Africa. Everyone must pass our criminal background check, sign the community pledge, and submit their thumbprint to be placed in our database. We will separate ourselves from con artists, degenerates, off-code Negroes, pedophiles, and urban terrorists. We're not asking for permission. We're going to take the lead in solving black issues in America and solving African issues on the continent when we get there. This is for credibility within the African American community, throughout the diaspora, and the black world. Today's topic of discussion is as follows: uniting the African American community and the African immigrant community within the United States of America. Chicago is paying $9,000 in rent for each migrant family, money for Ukraine and Israel, and exposing Democrat shields. Our first topic: uniting the African American community and the African immigrant community within the United States of America. While I was writing up this presentation, I heard on the news about a 12-year-old boy who was shot and killed in my city, Chicago. We have to do more than just pray. We have to build GRCAM Chicago while we still have an opportunity to do so, because things in America is about to get worse for black people. Mark my words. The war in the Middle East has dominated the news. We have an impending war between France and our African family in Niger. There's also war in Cameroon, the Congo, and Sudan. My priority is the liberation of black people who are trapped in American ghettos and African people. I am amazed how interested black people become when other races are faced with genocide, but do next to nothing to help our own group who face similar circumstances. I don't know why it's so hard for our people to find comfort with each other. I remember back when I was a college student at National Louis University, there was beef between African Americans and African immigrants in the United States, specifically in Chicago, Illinois. Most African Americans believe that all Nigerians are scammers, and when I talked with Nigerians, they told me they believed that all African Americans were lazy and lack ambition. They're poor and live in the ghetto. I asked them where did they get their information from. They told me mainstream media. The mainstream media project this stereotype on both sides. We need to have this conversation. Our ancestors were forced to come to the New World against their will. Our culture, our language, and our religion was stripped from us. We're not all poor and live in the ghetto. We have a black middle class community and also a black upper class community. There's a lot of things that African Americans have faced here in America that people don't know. They only know about American slavery from the European perspective. It was much more than that. It's whitewashed in the history books, but thank God for this new technology. Now we can create our own books and our own documentaries to tell our story from our point of view. I've been African American all my life, so the stories that my grandfather told me wasn't that long ago. We just became citizens of the United States during the 1960s. A lot of African immigrants I talked to asked me, how come African Americans aren't doing better for themselves? Or how come you all can't rise up and fight back against the injustices? When I flipped the script and asked them why they fled their homeland, many of them stopped talking to me. I explained to some of them who will listen about Black Wall Street, a town in Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in the 1900s. It was the most prestigious rich black community in the United States of America. They had their own banks, schools, theaters, law firms, etc. If you took at if you look at the pictures, it was so beautiful. They were doing well for themselves. A white woman claimed that she was raped by a black man and all hell broke out. The local government bombed Tulsa, Oklahoma. They called it a massacre because so many African Americans were killed, all because we were doing well for ourselves. This also happened in Wilmington Massacre of 1898 and Rosewood, just to name a few. Those are the type of things that we endured here in America that other groups don't know about. Other groups are never targeted by our government, nor were they ever enslaved. Only our group have. One thing that I want my African brothers and sisters to understand is that there are real obstacles here in America, and I want African immigrants and Afro-Caribbeans to be more respectful for the work that we put in when y'all come over here. We don't get the same benefits when we come to Africa. We are looked upon as foreigners instead of displaced Africans. In the 1960s, our grandparents stood up and started the civil rights movement. The only issue I have with our grandparents during the civil rights era is that all of the energy pushed for social integration and cultural assimilation, it should have went to reconnecting with Africa so that we could build an alliance with our people on the continent. Then we could have done international trade among our people in Africa, the Caribbean, and in South America. Black Americans would have been better off today. The fact is that there were more black businesses during Jim Crow than there are today. Why? Because black Americans have become Americanized. They are patronizing all these other businesses while ignoring black businesses. Then you wonder why we don't have many black businesses in the African American community. I found 2 videos on African Diaspora News Channel entitled, quote, "Brothers Find Out the Hard Way That Other Groups Will Never Support Us," and "Sister Records an Asian Beauty Supply Owner Discriminating Against Her for Having Natural Hair," unquote. I encourage my listeners to go to my Medium transcript, select the exact title of this presentation, and scroll down to show and prove. I also encourage African immigrants and Native Africans to watch videos about Memorandum 46. In that video, it discusses how black nationalists and how the U.S. government used different tactics to keep black Americans, African immigrants, and Native Africans divided globally with other Africans. I also need black Americans to read the document as a PDF entitled Benign Neglect, which is the Monahan Report. All of this was done to black Americans to sabotage black Americans' progress in America by the white supremacist financial elites. The Black Panther Party was formed to protect the black community against police brutality. They were nonviolent. They carried rifles around saying, "We won't allow others to abuse our people." They created a free breakfast program to feed black children, a free health care clinic for the black community. Everybody knows about the WIC program, which is Women's, Infant, and Children here in the United States of America, but it was the Black Panther Party, which started that. Today, the U.S. government has taken over that program, and now it's for everyone. The Black Panthers were labeled as a terrorist group, and they were jailed, killed, and destroyed due to COINTELPRO. Yet, to this day, we still have the Ku Klux Klan, which is a white supremacist group who hates and murder black people. They have police protection during their rallies, but the Black Panthers, who were nonviolent, were labeled a terrorist group. All the Black Panthers was trying to do is protect the black community from rogue cops. I want African immigrants to understand our story and what we've done. Our experience have affected us in a negative way. White America has taught us to hate ourselves, hate being black. We were taught not to be comfortable in our own skin. This is where the Willie Lynch mentality came about, and since then have been passed down from generation to generation. Not only for black Americans, but also in the Caribbean and in South America. Black Americans around the world are looked down as the lowest people. We survived all this turmoil we've been through. We should have been extinct, but we survived because we're Africans. The grassroots community activist movement was created to reconnect like-minded Black Americans, African immigrants, Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-Brazilians, and Afro-Latinos from both my Christian groups, Light of the World Inspirational Group, and Christian Spoken Word Network, as well as my secular groups, for us to unite, encourage, engage, and edify positive views and beliefs. We offer educational webinars, Facebook Live events, and opportunities that will directly benefit our members. Our goal is to get our film project fully funded and made so that the proceeds from the film will allow us to build GRCAM Chicago and make our presence known in the low-income African American community starting in Chicago. This is a kingdom economy business. Over here, we are pushing for lineage-based cash payment reparations for descendants of American slaves and an anti-black hate crime bill. We also want to reconnect with our African brothers and sisters on the African continent by hosting African tours to 10 African nations. Black Americans will heal from this Willie Lynch mentality within black culture. African immigrants will heal from the colonized mentality imposed by Europeans. We will learn about the different African cultures and vice versa. We want to move from behind the computer and meet each other in real life. For now, we meet on Facebook, where we communicate with each other. We're helping each other through this new technology. It's all about helping our young people reach their life goals and improving our inner cities in Chicago and improving the living conditions in the African slums through this Christian organization once we're established in the United States. We want to see our young people turn their life to God and be saved. And I dedicated my life to fulfill my God-given assignment. This is an authentic Black Christian organization. I believe this discussion between African Americans and African immigrants need to happen. Nobody is talking about it. This is why I created this platform. It's a safe space for Black people and Africans to discuss social issues and things that are happening in our society. If you don't want to get on camera, then just leave a comment in the comment section. If you want to come on this platform, then make arrangements with me so that we can discuss this on the show. The problem we have as African people all over the world is our lost history. Every black person in the world came from Africa. Over here, we're trying to contribute something positive for black people that are like-minded and want more out of life. This organization is for them. As African people, we have to separate ourselves from those who want to remain ignorant. My revised book is the foundation of my Christian business, and if you are a GRCAM member, then please purchase my revised book so that we can be on the same page. All of the principles in my revised book is the code. Before we bring GRCAI to Africa, we will establish it here in America first for credibility within the African American community, throughout the diaspora, and the black world. African Americans have sacrificed a lot for African immigrants to come to the United States of America. It came from our sacrifice and our struggle. My people who are trapped in American ghettos are suffering big time on all fronts, from school to prison pipeline, inadequate housing, inadequate health care, urban violence, drug abuse, high unemployment, physical genocide, and political genocide. We will not tolerate any disrespect from any African immigrants or Afro-Caribbeans coming to this country and putting down black Americans. We're all victims of the white supremacist financial elites. We're one people separated through time and distance. The black ghetto is where I came from. All I am trying to do is move my Christian business from behind a computer into the African American community before I cut and run to Africa. As for me and my house, I am reclaiming my ancestral homeland, which is Africa. We have black millionaires and black billionaires in America. They are Americanized. They care less about black youth, let alone the black community. This is why I created GRCAM, to broadcast my vision and plan for black America and Africa. I refuse to be ignored. This is why I host my podcast on a weekly basis. This is why I wrote my revised book and created my virtual store in order to generate capital to move my Christian business from behind the computer into the low-income African-American community, starting on the west side of Chicago. But I have little to no support, so now my focus is on raising funds for our film project. I did a series on the wealth gap in the United States of America, and I also wrote about it in my revised book. Immigrant families who come to America within 5 years, their children are in college and they start their own businesses and become homeowners. They look at black Americans and say, why can't you all do the same thing? This comes from a lack of understanding about how our generational wealth was passed down to descendants of slave owners and their children. They also don't understand how systematic racism played a role in holding back black Americans in this country. A lot of people are still in denial about it. They don't know our history of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, convict leasing, redlining. No other group in America was targeted like black Americans. This is why we need our reparations so that we can build GRCAI of Chicago and produce more black entrepreneurs. Then we can create wealth. Please leave a public comment on my Facebook page about the topic. Most of all, share this video podcast with your friends. This will help get the ball rolling. Our second topic, Chicago is paying $9,000 in rent for each immigrant family. I've been covering what's going on here in Chicago as it pertains to the migrant crisis. This past week, 41 buses have dropped off more migrants, for a total of 11,000 migrants living in shelters, sleeping on floors of police stations and at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Now the state of Illinois is footing the bill for what they call temporary housing apartments for migrants, and the state is paying $9,000 in rental assistance for 6-month period. Ideally, people would have started their legal process securing legal work authorization so that they can sustain their apartment. Black Chicagoans who are struggling to pay their rent or face eviction have the city of Chicago offered to pay $9,000 for 6 months for your rent. All they did was cross the border and they get all types of benefits without voting. The Democrats only come around to ask you to vote for them during election seasons. We get nothing out of voting. It's just the people you're voting against. They don't prioritize the black vote. Without the black vote, the Democrats would never win an election. That's where our political power lies. We need to collectively punish the Democrats politically for not doing anything for us. There is a large population of black homeless individuals in Chicago. The question is, what about suffering people? Why isn't our homeless population that are American citizens being placed in apartments? The South Shore community is suing the city to stop these politicians from placing migrants in their neighborhood. I suggest that the South Side and the West Side file lawsuits together to get your programs back, because these programs are discriminatory. Because if you're not going to pay for everybody's rent, then you should not pay anyone's rent. We're paying for people who don't belong on the soil, and they're not American citizens. Most of the schools they closed were in black neighborhoods. This could have been handled a whole lot better than how they are doing it. Chicago is still a sanctuary city. There was a recent poll done, and it revealed that black people, Hispanic people, and Asian people all agree that Chicago should not be a sanctuary city. The city of Chicago is going through a major crisis, yet these Democrat politicians still won't get rid of sanctuary city status. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson was asked about this, and in a recent poll, Chicago residents, took. Mayor Johnson scuffled at citizens and claimed he's not worried about losing voters. Brandon Johnson is not worried about the people that voted for him because he's Democrat first. We have to look at Republican candidates and select the person who offers the best policy for our community. Putting a halt on unchecked immigration is a start. I found some footage of Mayor Brandon Johnson being asked about sanctuary cities. The YouTube videos are entitled, quote, "Most Chicagoans prefer to end sanctuary cities status poll," unquote. I recommend that you watch the video clip in order to fully understand the issues. I also encourage my listeners to follow me on my Medium page. Look for the exact title of this presentation. Then click on the topic and scroll down to show and prove. So there was a poll asking Chicagoans, do they think Chicago should continue having sanctuary city status? The majority of voters said no, and the highest among those were Latinos and blacks. The reason is because of resources. It sounds like the mayor was deflecting. A majority of the people said no. Now, when I read deeper into this, it was mostly blacks, Latinos, and Asians that said no to sanctuary cities. The ones who agreed to sanctuary cities were white liberals. The majority doesn't want sanctuary cities, and instead of talking about that issue and what to do about it, The mayor sidestepped the issue and began talking about other things. People voted for him to do a job. He works for the people. How do you go from sanctuary city to talking about the alt-right, Colombia, and people in the media? The majority of the people don't want sanctuary cities. They don't care about your values. Brandon Johnson. The question is, are you going to end sanctuary city status? This ain't about a Brandon Johnson issue. It's not a Lori Lightfoot issue. This is a Democrat policy issue. When people say you get what you voted for, this is what they mean. The Democrat Party has been very vocal about what they stand for: immigration and LGBT issues. 70% of the homeless population in Chicago are black people. American taxpayers are spending millions of dollars on shelters, spending $135 an hour on nurses to treat migrants. We have people sleeping on the streets who are American citizens that's not in shelters. Brandon Johnson is blaming everything on the mega crowd and racism. The sanctions on some Latin American countries destabilized their economy in Venezuela, like the sanctions they have on Zimbabwe. The reason why you have a lot of people in Zimbabwe going to South Africa is because it's a better economy and because the sanctions are crippling their economy. The United States does this mess to try to push their countries, but it's not the right wing, because Biden is continuing the sanctions on Zimbabwe and many other countries. The crisis in Chicago has been going on for decades, like the investment and redlining in the low-income African American community. Well, Mayor Johnson, if you're going to talk about foreign policy, you need to call out the Biden administration. Let's go back a few years ago when the Trump administration was in power. We didn't have all these issues. The moment Biden got into office, he stopped building the wall and opened up the floodgates. If Brandon Johnson wants to save his political career, he needs to say Chicago is no longer a sanctuary city. We got enough migrants in Chicago. I believe Brandon Johnson is going to be a one-term mayor. At the end of the day, you got to think about your reputation in the community that you're fighting for. I used to live in Austin. I talked to a few people that know a little about Brandon Johnson. I got my commentary from those brothers and sisters from the community. These Democrat politicians claim they don't have money for reparations. Notice they're not saying nothing about why all their tax dollars going to migrants and Ukraine. Notice they're not saying a word. I told you the reason why they're against reparation is because both Democrats and Republicans are racist. They don't want us to get it. The city of Chicago is trying to take all of the service from black taxpayers and give it to migrants. Don't get mad at the migrants because the white supremacist financial elites are using them to paper them up to become their new slave class. That's going to work for them for extremely low wages. They're using their situation created by American foreign policy in Venezuela. All of the sanctions they put on those countries. Now many of those people are coming up here looking for a better life. Chicago residents filed a restraining order against the city over Almonson Park. There's a new development as it pertains to the migrant crisis in Chicago that was created by the Biden administration. Chicago residents have filed a restraining order to stop Mayor Brandon Johnson from taking their Almason Park to be used as a migrant shelter. Mayor Johnson also signed a contract paying people who work at migrant shelters up to $156 per hour. As I stated many times before, when Trump was in office, things were a lot better with immigration. But the moment Joe Biden got into office, he got rid of the Mexican policy and opened the borders. Now we have people flooding the gates to get here. Governor Greg Abbott has been sending migrants to Chicago and New York because we are sanctuary cities, and sanctuary cities refuse to cooperate with ICE, immigration, custom, and law enforcement will not detain them. But as I stated many times, what city in America can black people call a sanctuary city where we don't have to worry about racism? The Democrats always say we have to save democracy. So black people come out and vote. Remember, the Democrats want to take Almason Park away from senior citizens and for after-school programs for children from the community and convert it into migrant shelters for 200 people. There was a town hall meeting. The community came out and said no in a democracy, right? According to the Democrats, they would listen to the people, right? And say, we can't do this. But under the authoritarian regime, it don't matter what the people say. They're going to do whatever they want to do. Mayor Brandon Johnson said they will put it on hold. So what he started to do is reduce the number of staff that work at Almason Park. Now they have only one person working with their reduced hours, so the people had to take legal action. Austin residents have filed a contemporary restraining order to stop Almason Park from being transferred into a migrant shelter. NBC5 has the latest on the legal battle. Austin residents have to file a restraining order because the Democrats don't believe in democracy. So the community had to take legal action. That's the reason why Austin residents gathered together. They're upset that Almason Park programs have been canceled. Meanwhile, the park is a potential new migrant shelter. The city is asking taxpayers to step aside and allow this to happen. Mayor Johnson tells NBC5 News that plans to move migrants to the park are put on hold for now, but didn't say why residents are demanding answers about what's been done to their community center and its programs. I thought black Chicagoans said that the Democrats was our friend. I thought black people were their base. We can get rid of Brandon Johnson as long as you continue to vote Democrat, then you will continue to deal with the same issues. The mistakes that black people have been doing is selecting the same political party, the Democrats, for the past 60 years. It's the same problem. It's a Democrat policy issue. It's just that simple. You know, I'm telling you the truth. I am showing you in real time. I'm not just on here running off at the mouth. I'm showing you receipts on my transcript from my Medium page. The Democrat Party is not the party for Black America. We should be politically independent and go with the party that has the best policy for Black people. In Louisiana, Black people are 12% of the vote. These voters went to Jeff Landry, a Republican. The Democrats should have won easily in Louisiana. The majority of Black voters did not come out and vote for the Democrats. And out of the 216,000 that did. Only 12% of that went to Republicans. That is saying something, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of black people are getting fed up. The Democrat Party convention is supposed to be held in Chicago next year. This would be the best time to get our film project fully funded and made because all of the eyes across America will be on Chicago. The Democrat want black Chicagoans to come out and vote for them in November. But I want black Chicagoans and black New Yorkers to think about how the Biden administration is spending all of this money on migrants, Ukraine, and now Israel. But it has come to these sanctuary cities like Chicago. We only received $21 million from the federal government. Mayor Adams in New York is dealing with the same issues. You have all these policies that want to bring in all these people, but they don't give these sanctuary cities enough money to solve the issues. In Chicago, the migrants are getting $9,000 per family for 6 months to pay their rent when they're not giving American citizens resources like that. There should be a lawsuit filed about that too, because either you're going to give everybody a $9,000 check in Chicago to pay their rent, or nobody gets that. That's how I feel about it. You can't discriminate against citizens. If any of us leave America and go to Venezuela, you think they're going to treat us the same way? But when you start talking about reparation, they claim they don't have it, but they got money for everything else. Pay attention to all the people that's making money in this migrant situation. Every American citizen should have an issue with all this money going out. The Democrats have money for wars, money for migrants. That's a problem that all citizens should be talking about, like the rise of inflation. People are suffering due to increased food prices and gas prices. Please leave a public comment on my YouTube page about the topic. Most of all, share this video podcast with your friends. This will help get the ball rolling. Our third topic, money for Ukraine and Israel. Remember, these politicians said they don't have money for reparation. We need a study. We need a committee, or that reparation would bankrupt America. Well, Joe Biden has spoken out last week during a press conference telling the American people that we need to support his new spending plan for Ukraine and Israel. According to the New York Times, entitled, quote, details of Biden's $105 billion fund request for Israel and Ukraine. Biden is asking for $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, $13.6 billion for border security, $9.15 billion for humanitarian aid for Palestinians and Israel, $7.4 billion for Taiwan and Indo-Pacific. More than half of that money would go toward providing weapons and ammunition for Ukraine defense contracts and U.S. stock funds contracts. The $13.6 billion for border security, that money would pay for more border patrol officers, immigration shelters, and detention centers. It also includes more than $1 billion of battling fentanyl trafficking. It does not include two initiatives that the Republicans wanted: building the wall and changes to the way migrants seek asylum are allowed into the country. For those of you who may have missed it, there In the Middle East, the Palestinians and Israel are at war again. In New York City, there was a large Palestinian protest against the war in Israel. There are a lot of people out here who are in support of Israel and Palestinians. In London, there's 100,000 people protesting in the streets. We have a group of people who are not descendants of American slaves. They're black only when it's convenient for them. They speak up for other groups, but when black people need something, they get real quiet. These politicians are prioritizing migrants who don't belong on the soil. They're prioritizing Ukraine and Israel. I said they're going to tell you that anything and everything that happens needs to be put ahead of our issues, never ending crisis. That's what's going on here. We have our agenda, and that is exactly where we're going to focus on. When you look closely at how our government continues to practice benign and neglect toward black Americans and how bold they are with it by putting everybody else ahead of us. They're giving money to illegal immigrants. They're taking away from black American citizens. We have not been compensated, nor have we been given equal protection under the law. That's why we need an anti-black hate crime bill. We're falling more behind, and we're slipping into genocide. We're falling more behind, and we're slipping into genocide politically and physically. As it pertains to the Israel and Palestinian conflict, I don't want us to ever lose sight of our moral compass. We should be able to see right and wrong anywhere and everywhere. I'm not in favor of colonization. While we saw what happened to us here in America and in South Africa, I am not in favor of any form of injustice. I'm going to speak on them in the context that puts the focus on our experience. I don't condone injustice anywhere, but I like to start by discussing the injustice we face here in America. We have not fixed the situation in America. If you want to convince the world that you're truly invested in solving injustices, then do right by black Americans first by giving us our reparations in the forms of cash payments instead of sending all those billions of dollars to wars in foreign countries. I'm concerned about our plight here in America with all these off-code Negroes voting against our interests, and I'm concerned about our plight of African people. America has 15 army bases across Africa, while white supremacist financial elites plan on using them to carry out their agenda. They don't respect us. Notice there is not one African army base in any Western nation. The Democrats don't respect us. They know we need reparations that will help close the racial wealth gap between black Americans and white Americans. Young black voters need to be aware of these political games in American politics. I don't think that we should be just observers because our local elections are important, but in our general elections, we have to demand tangibles from these politicians, such as lineage-based cash payment reparations for descendants of American slaves. We also need to demand an anti-black hate crime bill. The U.S. government is throwing billions of dollars to assist foreign governments with their issues, but they still have not fixed all of the water pipes in Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi. The United States of American government doesn't view that as a priority. These places where black people reside and the majority of them vote Democrat. These politicians don't think it's important enough to replace those pipes. This is shameful, and this is what black Americans should be talking about. We have the federal government telling us what they can't do for black America. They have all this money to fight wars on the other side of the world, and yet they not given restorative justice. Because let's be clear, the thing that happened in Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi was engineered by the white supremacist financial elites. I talked about this a few years ago, that you have a state of Mississippi government has declared benign and neglect policy simply because it's a majority black city. You have a state that has declared war on its black citizens, and yet we got money going to the other side of the world to fight other people's wars with our black tax dollars. They're taking our taxes and giving to illegal immigrants. People who cannot even vote, people who are not citizens, are getting more benefits and resources than black Americans. This is why I created this platform. We got to do better for our racial group and our children, because our house is on fire. Please spread this video podcast and get involved with black issues. Nobody else is going to fight for us. We have to fight for ourselves. Black America, stop voting for these Democrat politicians who are ignoring us. Over here, we're trying to educate black people because the politicians, they vote for the Democrats, want to send $100 billion to the other side of the world, when we need to focus on fixing things here in America first. But this is what black America voted for. You can believe in Christianity, Islam, or whatever, but at the end of the day, what are you going to do about white supremacy in America? When we say systematic racism, that all that means is institutionalized racism. It's a system of racial subjugation against blacks in the following areas: criminal justice, economics, education, employment, housing, media, politics, and religion. This current system is corrupt because they are utilizing laws against us, even though those laws were meant for descendants of American slaves. We have yet to have the Constitution enforced for us. For example, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment has been used against us. These amendments were written to outlaw slavery. Now it's being used for other groups. It was supposed to be enforced for us, but it's been used against us. That's what we're up against in America. President Joe Biden declared unwavering support for Israel in the days after Hamas terror attack in Israel. I watched a news report from NBC News entitled, quote, "I would never vote Biden. Some Muslim Americans in a key swing state feel betrayed by the president," unquote. To fully understand this article, I recommend that you go to my Medium page, look for the exact title of this presentation, then click on the topic and scroll down to show and prove. Ahmad Wamanda, a former Biden advisor, now leading coalition efforts for the Michigan Democrat Party, called the state party chair to raise the alarm about what he was hearing from others of the largest Muslim and Arab American population in the country. Ramadan was hearing all of the frustration with Biden and the Democrats that they're threatening to not to vote for him again in a series of more than a dozen roundtable discussions with Muslim community leaders. While Muslim Americans remain a small minority of the U.S. population, their numbers are rapidly growing with both parties. Former President Donald Trump and other Republicans turned them off with policies like the travel ban that affected predominantly Muslim countries. The article goes on to say Muslim leaders are warning the Democrats may risk losing their support if Biden and the Democrats do not do more to combat Islamophobia and address the pain many are feeling about the war in Gaza. Joe Biden has single-handedly alienated every Arab American and Muslim American voter in Michigan, which is home to one of the largest Muslims and Arab American communities in the country. Farad said he had constituents and neighbors who have family members trapped in Gaza, including some of who are American citizens, and they feel completely abandoned by the U.S. government for not doing more to help them get out or get aid and pressuring Israel for a ceasefire. The Biden administration and Democrats has a whole are going to have to do a lot of work to rebuild some level of trust in the Muslim and Arab communities. The article goes on to say, enrolling conversations in Michigan and beyond over the past 2 weeks, Muslims, elected officials, activists, and community leaders have created a plan to mobilize their constituents to vote next year, but also to encourage them to leave the top of the ticket blank in protest, according to multiple people involved in the discussions. The White House and Biden campaign says they are aware of the concerns and working to address them, pointing to the Biden's comment in his Oval Office address on Thursday night, pushing for aid to Palestinian civilians and urging Israel not to be blindly by rage. President Biden said during his press conference, there is no place for Islamophobia, xenophobia, or any of the vile racism we have seen in recent weeks. Biden administration continues to work closely with leaders in the Muslim and Palestinian communities in America. Black people who have always been the swing vote, now other groups want to try to jump and take our spot. You're all worried about Latinos and Jamaicans trying to hijack hip-hop. You thought that was bad. Wait until you hear this. The margins in states like Michigan in recent elections have been so thin that many groups can claim credit for swinging elections, with representatives of each competing for resources and pushing to get their agenda moved up the White House priority. We've been saying and talking about this to Black America for a long time. Political genocide, because too many of us are off code. The goal of the social and political establishment and media establishment of America is to change the national conversation from black and white to brown, Asian, Arab, etc. Anything except black people. And now we are seeing this come to pass in this article. This not voting thing is materializing. I wonder who they learned that from, because they don't have a history of behaving in this manner. I wonder who showed them the template for responding like this. Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a bill that will give community college students in California a grant of up to $5,000 if they transfer to an HBCU. When you see things like this, that's why we have to stay on point about reparations. These politicians are trying to rename our reparations in the form of education. The money will go to the DACA children. This is what you're doing on the speak. He's showing photos of black people, but this money, $500,000, is open to anybody to transfer to an HBCU. And of course, Benjamin Crump is used to justify the bill, which aims to increase the number of students enrolled at HBCUs and an opportunity for illegal immigrants and DACA children. When we start talking about not voting in those feel threatened at the corporate level in media and government, because the message is catching on because of what we've been saying all along. Not voting is starting to spread around various populations in America. That begs the question, if not voting, then what would be the alternative? The Biden administration doesn't think we need reparations. I'm telling you right now, mark my words, you will see this again. The FDA is considering banning hair straightening chemicals used by black women for years. Researchers show it may increase the risk of cancer. Proposed ruling marked by April 2024, just in time for the elections and primaries. This is the only thing the Democrats will give us, symbolic gestures. We want tangibles. Representative Anyan Presley in Massachusetts and Chanel Brown of Ohio asked the FDA to investigate chemical hair straighteners, pointing to a study published in 2022 from the National Institute of Health that linked straighteners to an increased risk of uterine cancer. Notice Miss Presley is only concerned about black women's hair. She's not promoting reparations. She's not promoting an anti-black hate crime bill. With all the things that the government could be concerned about, why this? For them talking about not voting and then hitting the streets, if that worked for black people, that's the template we created during the civil rights era. What we are trying to do on this platform is wake up Black America while we still have a chance to turn around our situation politically and socially. Hopefully our audience will grow and more Black Americans will listen to this video podcast. We don't have to take our cues from black celebrities. I want us to understand that this change isn't coming from black celebrities at the top. This is coming from black grassroots, which is the soil. We don't need the majority of black society to get on code. That's been the most frustrating part of all of this. I want you all to understand that we've been consistent with our message. We want lineage-based cash payment reparations for descendants of American slaves. Please leave a public comment on my YouTube page about the topic. Most of all, share this video podcast with your friends. This will help get the ball rolling. Our fourth topic, exposing Democrat shields. The Democrat shields are starting to come out and use their same old tactics of trying to bully you to vote Democrat by insulting you or trying to belittle you because they feel That is the way to get us to support them. A lot of the Shields are upset about what happened in Louisiana. You have to understand that's how the Shields get paid by getting you to go out and vote. Their paycheck is based on delivering the black vote for Democrats. If I did not care about black people, I would be a sellout too. But I couldn't live with myself knowing I am undermining my racial group and my community. It may take me a little longer, but in the end, I will make a positive impact in my community because of what I'm trying to build. That is GRCAM Chicago. I came across a TikTok video about a Democrat shield. The term Democrat shield means a person who publicly helps or gives credibility to a person or organization without disclosing that they have a close relationship with that person or organization. When I watched this video, I thought this could be helpful for my listeners to educate them even more about the dirty tricks in politics. We're going to see more and more of this as election seasons near. So let's get into it. I recommend that you watch the full TikTok video entitled, quote, Exposing Democrat Shields. I also encourage my listeners to follow me on my Medium page. Look for the exact title of this presentation, then click on the topic and scroll down to show and prove. She already starts off with calling people stupid. This woman was using a lot of foul language. She's promoting propaganda. They have told you if you don't go out and vote Democrat, then the Republicans is going to get your vote. We have established that the Democrats do not believe in democracy. Look at my hometown, Chicago and New York, the migrant situation, the push for reparation, anything that black people ask for the Democrat Party. Ignore it. They don't listen to us. True democracy is where the people have a voice. Vote blue no matter who. No, not over here. I need to see your track record. We have to see what you have done for the black community. We have to vet everybody. Black people are starting to wake up, and that means the Democrats are in trouble with the black community. Only slaves owners could vote in America. When they wrote the Constitution, our ancestors were still working on those plantations. Republicans got one view of how white supremacy should work. The Democrats have a view on how white supremacy should work. She said Republicans are going to take away everybody's rights. I don't think so. See, what the Democrats do is take away black people's rights systematically, and they'll give rights to illegal immigrants. They have already given them millions of dollars just for crossing the border. The Democrats talking about Social Security is not going to be here, yet they are giving Ukrainians $200,000 from Social Security that came to America. Remember, the AIDS and Hate Crime Bill, along with resources. Now they're talking about giving more money to Israel. Do you see how these Democrat shields talk down to black people, but none of these Democrat shields talk this way to white people, Asian people, Latino people, etc. Over here, we show people how the Democrats are prioritizing all other groups. Look at all the billions of dollars that's going out to everybody except black Americans. We talk about the Democrat Party because 90% of black people vote for them. We can't talk about Republicans like that because we don't vote for them like that. Black people have been voting for the Democrats for the past 60 years, yet it has not made a difference in our lives. If the Democrat Party was our party, then we would have qualified immunity on the books. If the Democrat Party was our party, then we would be getting all kinds of grants and loans to build up our community. Our black farmers would be getting money no different than the white ones. Black people have no control or say in the Democrat Party. We talk about reparations. Black black people need Black Americans need reparation, but the Democrat Party don't support it. Ukraine didn't vote for Democrats. The migrants didn't vote for Democrats. But they're getting all kinds of resources. Please leave a public comment on my YouTube page about the topic. Most of all, share the video podcast with your friends. This will help get the ball rolling. I would like to thank everyone who have contributed or will contribute to support us on our PayPal page, purchasing items from our virtual store, purchasing my revised book, or sending a direct donation through our GoFundMe page. We appreciate your support. You can find all of the links below this video podcast in the comment section. If you're listening to this audio podcast on Anchor or Spotify, just click on the YouTube icon and select the About section, then scroll down to links. Instructions on how to participate on the show. First, watch my video podcast. This is called Side A. After I finish my presentation, then I will open up the phone lines through Facebook Messenger. This is called Side B. You can interact with me in real time either by voice call, by clicking on the phone icon, or by video call, by clicking on the camera icon. I'm going to wait around for about 15 minutes. If I don't hear from anyone, then this will conclude our video podcast for today. Peace and blessings.